The vintage Chateau Margaux didn't just stain the white silk of her maternity dress. It stained the soul of the Sterling family forever. On a snowy Christmas Eve, inside a ballroom filled with the city's elite, Oliver Sterling stood dripping in red wine, shivering as her mother-in-law and her husband's mistress laughed. They thought they were destroying a penniless nobody who had trapped a millionaire. They didn't realize that the trembling woman clutching her belly wasn't just Oliver Sterling. She was the sole heiress to the Vance global empire, and the man they thought was a god was about to find out he was nothing more than an ant beneath her father's boot. This is the story of the most brutal Christmas revenge ever witnessed. Snow fell heavily on the manicured lawns of the Sterling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, burying the world in white. Inside the sprawling mansion, however, the atmosphere was suffocating. Oliver Sterling stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest bedroom. She had been moved out of the master suite 3 weeks ago to let Liam sleep better, according to her mother-in-law Constance. Oliver smoothed her hands over the small, distinct bump beneath her oversized sweater. 4 months. She was 4 months pregnant, a miracle she had been waiting to announce tonight at the Sterling Architecture annual Christmas gala. But looking at her reflection, Oliver didn't see the glowing wife of a tech real estate tycoon. She saw a ghost. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, a style Constance insisted upon, and her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. "Oliver, are you still staring at yourself?" The voice cut through the heavy oak door like a serrated knife. Constance Sterling didn't knock. She never knocked. She barged in, dressed in a silk kimono that cost more than most people's cars, clutching a glass of morning champagne. "I was just getting ready, Constance," Oliver whispered, turning around. Constance sneered, her eyes scanning Oliver's figure with disdain. "Liam is downstairs dealing with the caterers because someone," she glared at Oliver, "forgot to confirm the caviar shipment from the supplier in New York. Honestly, Oliver, what do you bring to this marriage besides incompetence?" Oliver bit her lip. She hadn't forgotten. Constance had cancelled the order herself using Oliver's email, but arguing was futile. "I'm sorry. I'll fix it. Don't bother. Isabella already handled it. She knows how to run a household, unlike some orphanage cases." The insult landed exactly where Constance intended. Oliver had no family she spoke of. When she met Liam Sterling 2 years ago, she was working as a junior archivist in a library. Liam, the rising star of the architectural world, had been charmed by her simplicity, her grace, and the fact that she didn't care about his money. They eloped within 6 months, but the honeymoon phase shattered at the moment Constance moved in. To Constance, Oliver was a gold digger, a nobody, a parasite attached to the Sterling legacy. "Wear the grey dress tonight," Constance commanded, turning to leave. "The long-sleeved one. It hides the weight you've gained. We don't want the investors thinking Liam's wife has let herself go." Oliver instinctively covered her stomach. "Constance, I'm not fat. I don't care what you are," Constance snapped, slamming the door. Oliver sank onto the bed, her hand trembling. "Tell him," her mind screamed. "Tell Liam tonight." Liam Sterling was not a bad man, or at least he hadn't been. But he was weak. He was a man who had spent his life seeking his mother's approval. Lately, with the pressure of the Sterling Group's IPO looming, he had grown distant. He spent late nights at the office, and when he wasn't at the office, he was at business dinners with Isabella Thorne. Isabella, the daughter of Senator Thorne, blonde, vicious, and wealthy. She was the woman Constance had always intended for Liam. For the past month, Isabella had been a permanent fixture in their lives, acting as a consultant for the gala. Oliver reached under her mattress and pulled out a velvet box. Inside lay a positive pregnancy test and a small ultrasound photo. She also pulled out a phone, a cheap burner phone she kept hidden. There was one unread message. "Daddy, the jet is in Titerboro. Just say the word, Elle. You don't have to endure this. Come home." Oliver stared at the screen. Her father, Cain Vance. To the world he was a myth, the reclusive industrialist who owned half the shipping lines in the Atlantic and had a net worth that made the Sterlings look like they were on welfare. To Oliver, he was just Dad. She had left his world of bodyguards and armored cars because she wanted to be loved for who she was, not the Vance billions. She typed back, "Not yet. I have to tell Liam about the baby tonight. If he chooses us, I stay. If he doesn't, come get me." She put the phone away and stood up. Tonight was the test, not just for her marriage, but for Liam's soul. She wouldn't wear the grey dress. She went to the back of the closet and pulled out a garment bag she had bought with her own savings from her library days. Inside was a gown of pure white silk, elegant and flowing, designed to accentuate the baby bump, not hide it. "Tonight," she whispered to the empty room. "Tonight, we find out the truth." The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a sea of black tuxedos and glittering designer gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume, pine needles, and ambition. A 20-foot Christmas tree dominated the center of the room, dripping in Swarovski crystals. Oliver arrived alone. Liam had gone ahead to greet the VIPs with his mother. When the valet opened the door of the town car, the flashbulbs blinded her for a moment, but nobody shouted her name. To the press, she was just the invisible Mrs. Sterling. She walked up the grand staircase, the white silk gown flowing around her like water. She looked ethereal, a stark contrast to the heavy velvets and sequins around her. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. As she entered the ballroom, the noise didn't stop, but heads turned. She looked beautiful, radiant even, but the whispers followed. "Is that her, the librarian? Look at the dress, white in winter? Bold. Is she showing?" Oliver scanned the room for her husband. She found him near the ice sculpture, laughing. He looked dashing in his bespoke Armani tuxedo, a glass of scotch in one hand, but his other hand was resting on the lower back of a woman in a scandalously low-cut red sequin dress. Isabella Thorne. Oliver's breath hitched. Isabella wasn't just standing near him, she was practically draped over him, and standing right next to them, beaming like a proud matriarch, was Constance. Oliver straightened her spine. "Do it for the baby," she told herself. She navigated through the crowd, ignoring the judgmental stares of Constance's social circle. "Liam," Oliver said, her voice soft but clear as she reached the trio. Liam turned, his smile faltering slightly when he saw her. His eyes widened as they took in the white dress. "Oliver, you're here. I thought you were wearing the grey." "Oh, look who decided to show up," Isabella interrupted, her voice shrill and mocking. She swirled her wine glass, stepping closer to Liam, staking her claim. "And in white. A bit bridal for a Christmas party, isn't it, sweetie? Or are you trying to remind Liam that you're actually married?" The small circle of elites around them chuckled. "I wanted to look nice for you, Liam," Oliver said, ignoring Isabella and locking eyes with her husband. "There's something important I need to tell you. Can we go somewhere private?" Liam looked uncomfortable. He glanced at his mother. Constance stepped forward, blocking Oliver's path to Liam. "Private? Don't be selfish, Oliver. Liam is hosting. He can't run off to hold your hand just because you're feeling insecure." "It's not insecurity, Constance. It's about our family," Oliver said, her voice trembling slightly. "Family?" Constance laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Darling, look around you. This is Liam's family. These are his investors, his partners, people who matter. You are just a temporary lapse in judgment." The cruelty was so public, so naked, that the conversation nearby died down. People were watching. "Liam," Oliver pleaded, reaching for his arm. "Please." Liam pulled his arm away. It was a small motion, but it felt like a slap. "Oliver, not now," he hissed, his face flushing with embarrassment. "Mum is right. I have to make the keynote speech in 10 minutes. Go sit at table 19. Table 19. The table by the kitchen doors. The table for the overflow guests and distant cousins. "Liam, I'm pregnant," she whispered, hoping the proximity would make him hear, hoping it would break the spell. But just as the words left her lips, the orchestra swelled, beginning a loud rendition of Carol of the Bells. Liam didn't hear her, but Isabella did. Isabella's eyes narrowed into slits. She saw the bump. She saw the way Oliver held herself. The calculation in Isabella's eyes was immediate and terrifying. If Oliver was pregnant, a divorce would be messy. Liam might stay for the child. Isabella looked at Constance and gave a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. Constance understood immediately. They had to break her. Tonight, before she could make an announcement. "Oh, Oliver," Isabella said loudly, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You look so pale. Are you ill, or have you just had a bit too much of the free bar already?" "I haven't had a drop," Oliver said firmly. "Really?" Constance chimed in, raising her voice so the surrounding tables could hear. "Because we all know about your background, dear. Alcoholism runs in poor families, doesn't it? It's a tragedy." "That is a lie!" Oliver cried out, shocking herself with the volume. "Don't make a scene," Liam snapped, finally turning on his wife. "God, Oliver, why can't you just fit in for one night?" "Because they are lying about me, Liam, and you're letting them." Isabella stepped forward, a large goblet of dark, rich red punch in her hand. "Liam, calm down. Poor thing is hysterical. Here, Oliver, have a drink. It will calm your nerves." "I don't want it," Oliver said, backing away. "Oh, don't be rude," Isabella sneered. She took a step closer, feigning a stumble on her high stiletto. It happened in slow motion. Isabella lurched forward. The goblet in her hand didn't just spill. She thrust it forward with force. Splash! The thick, crimson liquid hit Oliver square in the chest. It soaked instantly into the white silk, running down her stomach, looking horrifyingly like blood. The cold shock made Oliver gasp, and the sticky liquid splattered up onto her face and hair. The ballroom went silent. "Oops," Isabella giggled, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. There was zero regret in her eyes. My hand slipped. Constance let out a gasp that was purely theatrical. "Oh, good heavens! Look at her. She looks like a disaster." Oliver stood frozen, the red stain spreading across her belly. She looked at Liam, waiting for him to yell, to defend her, to grab a napkin. Anything. Liam stared at her. His eyes weren't filled with concern. They were filled with disgust. He looked at the stain, then at the shocked faces of his investors. He cared more about the disruption to the gala than the humiliation of his wife. "Go clean yourself up, Oliver," Liam muttered, turning his back on her. "You're ruining the party." That was the moment, the exact second the last thread of love snapped. Oliver didn't cry. The tears that had been threatening to fall evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve that she had inherited from a man these people couldn't even dream of meeting. She wiped a drop of punch from her cheek. "You're right, Liam," she said, her voice eerily calm in the silent room. "I am ruining the party. But don't worry. I'm leaving." "Good," Constance hissed. "And take the back exit. We don't want the valet to see you like that." Oliver turned. She didn't head for the back exit. She walked straight through the center of the room, head held high, the red stain a badge of her martyrdom. She walked out of the double doors, into the cold December night. She reached into her purse and pulled out the burner phone. Her fingers didn't tremble this time. She dialed the number. "Daddy? Oliver? Is everything okay?" Kane Vance's voice was warm, safe. "No," she said, looking back at the glowing lights of the plaza. "Burn it down, Dad. Burn it all down." There was a pause on the other end. Then a tone of voice that changed from fatherly to the ruthless emperor of industry. "I'm landing in 20 minutes, sweetheart. Tell me who they are." "The Sterlings," Oliver said, "and the Thorns." "Consider them dead," Kane replied. "I'm coming." The wind outside the Plaza Hotel whipped around Oliver like a physical blow. The temperature had dropped significantly, and the snow was coming down in thick, blinding sheets. Oliver stumbled down the steps, the white silk dress clinging to her legs, wet and heavy with the sugary punch and melted snow. She was freezing, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins kept her moving. She had to get away from the laughter, the clinking glasses, and the man who had just watched his wife be humiliated and done nothing. She made it to the sidewalk, her teeth chattering violently. Passers-by in thick coats hurried past, averting their eyes from the woman in the stained summer gown who looked like a tragic figure from a horror movie. "Taxi!" she croaked, raising a hand. But the yellow cab sped by, full of holiday shoppers and tourists. A sharp cramp ripped through her lower abdomen. Oliver gasped, doubling over, clutching the stone balustrade of a planter. "No," she prayed, panic flooding her chest. "Not the baby. Please, God, take anything but not the baby." The pain came again, sharper this time. Her vision blurred. The bright lights of Fifth Avenue smeared into streaks of gold and red. She sank to her knees on the icy pavement. The cold was seeping into her bones, numbing her fingers and toes. "Mom, are you all right?" A doorman from the hotel hesitated near the entrance, looking concerned but unwilling to step out into the blizzard for someone who looked like a vagrant. "Help!" Oliver whispered, but the wind snatched the word away. She felt herself slipping away, the darkness at the edges of her vision closing in. She curled into a ball on the sidewalk, trying to shield her stomach from the biting cold. She thought of Liam. Not the man back in the ballroom, but the man she had met in the library 2 years ago. The one who had brought her coffee and listened to her talk about rare books. Where did he go? She wondered, as her eyes fluttered shut. Who killed him? Suddenly, the roar of engines cut through the silence of the snow. Tires screeched against the asphalt. It wasn't a taxi, it was a convoy. 3 massive, armored black Cadillac Escalades swerved to the curb, blocking traffic. The lead vehicle's door flew open before it even came to a complete stop. A man jumped out, tall, built like a tank, wearing a dark trench coat over a tactical suit. He didn't look like a chauffeur. He looked like a soldier. "Target located!" he shouted into an earpiece. "She's down! I repeat, the Principessa is down!" The man sprinted toward her, ignoring the slush. He skidded to his knees beside her, ripping off his coat and wrapping it around her shivering frame. "Mrs. Sterling. Miss Vance," he corrected himself, his voice gruff but gentle. "I've got you. You're safe." Oliver cracked an eye open. She recognized him. "Kane." "I'm here, Oliver. Your father is 5 minutes out. We're getting you to the hospital now." Kane scooped her up into his arms as if she weighed nothing. He carried her toward the middle SUV, where the back door was already open, revealing a warm, leather-clad interior that looked more like a mobile command center than a car. As Kane laid her gently onto the back seat, another man, This one with a medical bag was already moving to check her vitals. BP is dropping, the medic said tightly. She's in shock. Hypothermia setting in. Pulse is thready. The baby, Oliver murmured, clutching Kane's sleeve. Check the baby. The medic placed a sensor on her stomach. For a terrifying 10 seconds, there was only the sound of the wind howling outside and the hum of the engine. Then, a rapid, rhythmic whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Heartbeat detected, the medic exhaled. Fetal distress is minimal, but we need to stabilize the mother immediately. Get us to Mount Sinai, now! Kane slammed the door and jumped into the front seat. Go! 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 The convoy peeled away, sirens blaring. Not police sirens, but a private frequency that cleared the road. Inside the car, the warmth began to return to Oliver's limbs, but the pain in her heart remained frozen. She looked out the tinted window as the Plaza Hotel disappeared into the snowy distance. She wasn't Oliver Sterling anymore. That woman had died on the sidewalk. The phone in the center console buzzed. Kane answered it, listened for a second, and then handed it to Oliver. It's him, Kane said reverently. Oliver took the phone. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was steady. Dad? I saw the drone footage, Elle. Kane Vance's voice was a low rumble of suppressed violence. I saw them leaving you in the snow. They didn't just leave me, Dad. They laughed. A silence stretched on the line, heavy and terrifying. When Kane spoke again, his voice sounded like tectonic plates shifting. Rest now, darling. The doctors are waiting. By the time you wake up, the name Sterling will be synonymous with ash. Oliver closed her eyes, letting the phone drop. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel alone. She felt the immense, terrifying weight of the Vance Empire wrapping around her like a shield. Mount Sinai Hospital had seen billionaires before. It had seen celebrities, politicians, and royals. But it had never seen anything like the arrival of Kane Vance. The entire VIP wing on the top floor had been cleared. Security detail stood at every elevator and stairwell. Nurses and doctors moved with hushed urgency, terrified of making a mistake. In room 101, Oliver lay in a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs, warming her blood and hydrating her system. The red stain had been washed away, her hair was brushed, and she wore a soft medical gown. The ultrasound monitor was still running, filling the room with the steady, comforting sound of her baby's heartbeat. The door opened. Kane Vance walked in. He was a man who sucked the oxygen out of a room simply by entering it. At 60 years old, he was still an imposing figure, 6'3", with silver hair swept back from a face carved from granite. He wore a 3-piece suit that cost more than the Sterling mansion, but his eyes were red-rimmed. He stopped at the foot of the bed, looking at his daughter. The Iron Wolf of Wall Street, the man who had hostilely taken over 3 sovereign nations' debt systems, looked like he was about to cry. Elle, he breathed. Hi, Dad, Oliver whispered. He crossed the room in 2 strides and engulfed her in a hug, careful of the wires. He buried his face in her hair. I'm sorry. I should have come sooner. I should have dragged you out of that house the moment I met that spineless boy. I loved him, Dad, Oliver said, a tear finally escaping. I thought if I was just a good wife, if I supported him. Kane pulled back, his hands gripping her shoulders gently. You were a perfect wife. He was an imperfect man. You cannot fill a cup that has a hole in the bottom, Oliver. No matter how much love you pour in. The door opened again, and the chief of obstetrics entered, looking nervous. Mr. Vance, the doctor said, clutching a clipboard. We've stabilized Oliver. The cramping was stress-induced. The hypothermia was mild and caught just in time. Both mother and baby are going to be fine. But what? Kane's head snapped toward the doctor, his eyes narrowing. She needs absolute rest, no stress. Her cortisol levels are through the roof. If she undergoes another shock like tonight, she will lose the child. Kane nodded slowly. She won't be shocked. She will be the one doing the shocking. He waited for the doctor to leave, then turned back to Oliver. He pulled a chair up and sat down, his expression shifting from father to warlord. Kane told me what happened with the wine. Isabella Thorne, correct? Oliver nodded. And Constance. She called me an alcoholic in front of the entire board. They wanted to provoke a miscarriage, Dad. I saw it in Isabella's eyes. She pushed me. Kane's jaw tightened so hard, a vein throbbed in his temple. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek black smartphone. He tapped the screen a few times and then turned it around to show Oliver. It was a live feed of the Sterling Gala. I have eyes inside, Kane said coldly. Look. On the small screen, Oliver saw the ballroom she had just fled. But the mood hadn't dampened. In fact, it looked more festive. The band was playing jazz. Waiters were clearing the main table, and there, standing on the stage with a microphone, was Liam. Beside him stood Constance, looking victorious, and clinging to his arm, wearing that red sequin dress, was Isabella. Oliver turned the volume up. And so, Liam was saying, his voice smooth and charming, while we had a small domestic disturbance earlier, I want to assure you all that the Sterling Group is stronger than ever. In fact, I am thrilled to announce that with the help of Thorne Consulting, we have secured the preliminary bid for the new Manhattan Skyline project. Applause erupted in the ballroom. Isabella beamed, waving to the crowd like she was already the first lady of the company. Additionally, Liam continued, laughing slightly, my mother, Constance, would like to apologize for the interruption. We try to help those less fortunate. But sometimes, mental instability is hard to manage. We wish Oliver the best in her recovery facility. Oliver gasped. He's telling them I'm in a psych ward? He's rewriting the narrative, Kane said. He's painting you as the crazy, charity case wife, so that when he files for divorce next week, and he will, he can claim full custody of any assets and keep his reputation clean. Oliver stared at the screen. The man she loved was erasing her existence to protect his stock price. He doesn't know about the baby, Oliver said. Not really, he didn't hear me. Good, Kane said. That is our ace. Kane stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the New York skyline. They need the Manhattan Skyline project to stay afloat, don't they? That's why he's in bed with the Thornes. The senator pulls strings for the permits, Liam gets the contract, and the IPO launches next month. Yes, Oliver said. They are leveraged to the hilt. If the IPO fails, they lose everything. The house, the firm, everything. Kane turned back to her, a cruel, predatory smile curling his lips. Oliver, do you remember what I gave you for your 18th birthday? Oliver frowned. You gave me a portfolio, a holding company. Vance Global Ventures, Kane nodded. I put it in your name. You wanted to be independent, so you never touched it. You went to work in that library. But that fund has been sitting there, growing, compounding. He walked back to the bed. Technically, my dear, you are the majority shareholder of the bank that holds the mortgage on the Sterling estate. And as of 10 minutes ago, I had my brokers purchase 51% of the outstanding debt of Sterling Architecture. Oliver's eyes widened. Dad, what are you saying? I'm saying, Kane leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper, that you don't just own the roof over their heads. You own the shirt on his back. You own the microphone he is holding. You own the champagne they are drinking. He checked his watch. The gala ends in an hour. They are expecting a mystery investor to sign the final guarantee for the Skyline project tonight. They think it's a Japanese conglomerate. It's not? No. Kane smoothed his tie. It's VGV, Vance Global Ventures. It's you. Oliver looked back at the screen. Liam was toasting Isabella. They looked so happy. So secure. They think I'm a nobody, Oliver said softly. The fear in her heart was being replaced by a cold, burning fire. They think I'm a helpless orphan. So let's go introduce them to your family, Kane said. Do you feel up to a little trip, or shall I handle it? Oliver looked at her stomach. Then she looked at the screen. She saw Constance whispering in Liam's ear, probably poisoning him further against her. She sat up, wincing slightly as she swung her legs over the side of the bed. Get me a dress, Dad, she said, her eyes turning into steel. Not white. White is for victims. Kane smiled, and it was the smile of a king who had just found his heir. What color? Red, Oliver said. Blood red. If they want a scandal, let's give them a show. Kane! Kane barked at the door. Call the stylists and tell the pilot to prep the chopper. We aren't taking the car. We're landing on the roof. 1 hour later, the atmosphere inside the Plaza Hotel ballroom had shifted from festive to anticipatory. The orchestra had stopped playing holiday standards and was now providing a low, tense underscore to the business at hand. Liam Sterling stood at the podium, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. Despite the earlier interruption, the night was going well. The investors had bought his story about Oliver's instability. In fact, many were looking at him with sympathy, the handsome architect saddled with a troubled wife, doing his best to keep his empire together. Ladies and gentlemen, Liam said, his voice booming through the speakers, we are moments away from signing the deal of the century. The Manhattan Skyline project will redefine this city. And to make this happen, we have secured the backing of a silent partner, a firm known only as VGV. Constance stood in the front row, clapping enthusiastically. Beside her, Isabella Thorne whispered, VGV, who are they? Daddy said he couldn't find any info on them. Who cares? Constance hissed back, her eyes gleaming with greed. The wire transfer cleared this morning. They put up $200 million. That's all that matters. Once Liam signs this contract, we are untouchable. Isabella smiled, smoothing her red sequins. And with Oliver gone, I can finally move my things into the master suite properly. Of course, darling. Constance patted her hand. You belong there. High above them, the thumping rhythm of rotor blades cut through the winter night. The guests didn't hear it at first, insulated by the heavy ballroom curtains, but the vibration rattled the crystal glasses on the tables. Is that a helicopter? Someone muttered. On the roof of the plaza, the wind was howling. A sleek, black Sikorsky helicopter, emblazoned with a gold V on the tail, touched down on the private helipad. The door slid open. Kane stepped out first, followed by 2 more security guards. They formed a perimeter. Then Kane Vance stepped out, looking like a god of war in his tuxedo. He turned and offered his hand. Oliver took it. She was unrecognizable from the shivering, stained woman who had fled an hour ago. She wore a gown of deep oxblood velvet, a custom Valentino that Kane had ordered, flown in from his private penthouse collection nearby. It was strapless, hugging her curves before flaring out at the floor, regal and imposing. Around her neck sat a necklace that made the Sterling family jewels look like costume trinkets. The heart of the ocean, a sapphire surrounded by 10 carats of diamonds. Her hair was no longer in a severe bun. It cascaded in loose, golden waves around her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless, her lips painted a dark crimson that matched her dress. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. "Ready?" Kane asked, his voice barely audible over the rotors. "Let's go buy a company, Dad," Oliver said. They took the private executive elevator down. As the numbers on the display ticked down, 20, 19, 18, Oliver felt a phantom kick in her stomach. "We're doing this for you," she thought, "so you never have to bow to anyone." The elevator doors opened onto the ballroom level. 2 security guards at the ballroom entrance moved to stop them. "Private event," one guard said, stepping forward. "Invitations only." Kane didn't even slow down. He simply held up a platinum badge. "We aren't guests. We're the owners." The guards, confused by the sheer authority radiating from the group, stepped aside. Inside the ballroom, Liam was holding a gold pen. The contract lay open on the podium. "And now," Liam smiled, "I'd like to invite the representative of VGV to the stage to countersign." The double doors at the back of the room didn't just open. They were thrown wide by the hotel staff. Every head turned. The silence that fell was absolute. It was heavier than the silence after the wine spill. This was the silence of predators recognizing a bigger predator. Kane Vance walked in first. The room gasped. Everyone knew Kane Vance. He was on the cover of Forbes every other month. He was the man who ate competitors for breakfast. Why is Kane Vance here? The crowd wondered. Is he VGV? Liam's mouth dropped open. Mr. Vance? He stammered into the microphone. We didn't expect. Kane didn't look at Liam. He stopped, turned, and extended his hand back toward the doorway. Oliver stepped into the light. The red velvet dress caught the glow of the chandeliers. She walked with a slow, deliberate cadence, her hand resting lightly on Kane's arm. She looked at no one but Liam. Constance dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Oliver?" Constance whispered, her face draining of color. "But we sent her to—" Isabella's eyes bulged. She looked at the necklace around Oliver's neck. She knew jewelry. That necklace alone was worth more than the Thorne family estate. "What is she doing with Kane Vance?" Isabella choked out. Oliver and her father walked straight down the center aisle. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. People who had sneered at her an hour ago now shrank back, terrified by the aura of power she exuded. They reached the stage. Liam was paralyzed, gripping the podium like a lifeline. "Oliver," Liam breathed, his eyes darting between her and Kane. What is going on? Who gave you those clothes? Why are you with him?" Oliver didn't answer him. She walked up the stairs to the stage, the velvet trailing behind her. She stood next to the podium, taking the microphone from a stunned Liam. "Hello, everyone," her voice rang out, crystal clear, amplified to every corner of the room. "I hope you're enjoying the party." She looked down at Constance in the front row. "Constance," Oliver smiled, a cold, dazzling smile. "You mentioned earlier that I bring nothing to this marriage besides incompetence, and that I'm a temporary lapse in judgment," Constance stammered, unable to form words. "I thought about that," Oliver continued, pacing the stage like a panther. "And I realized you were right. I haven't been contributing enough. So I decided to fix that." She gestured to Kane. "Ladies and gentlemen," Oliver said, "allow me to introduce my father, Kane Vance, chairman of Vance Global Industries." The room exploded. "Father? The librarian is a Vance. Oh my God, the Sterlings are dead." Liam looked like he had been hit by a truck. He looked at Kane, then at Oliver. "Father, but you said you were an orphan. You said you had no one." I said I left my old life behind because I wanted to be loved for me. Not my money, Oliver said, turning to face him. I wanted to know if a man could love Oliver. The girl who likes books, not Oliver Vance, the heiress. She stepped closer to him. I got my answer tonight, didn't I, Liam? Liam turned pale. Oliver, wait. The wine, the stress. I didn't mean, you watched them humiliate me, she said softly, off mic, so only he could hear. And you told me I was ruining your party. She turned back to the microphone. But we have business to attend to. You were waiting for the representative of VGV to sign the contract? Oliver picked up the contract from the podium. She glanced at it, then looked at the crowd. VGV stands for Oliver Vance Global Ventures. It's my personal trust fund. She ripped the contract in half. Rip. The sound was deafening in the silent room. I am the mystery investor, Oliver declared, and I'm pulling the deal. You can't do that! Isabella Thorne rushed the stage, her face twisted in panic. We have a verbal agreement. The money was transferred. And it can be recalled. Kane Vance spoke for the first time. His voice was a deep baritone that commanded instant obedience. He stepped up beside his daughter. There is a clause in the preliminary agreement. Conduct unbecoming of a partner. I'd say assaulting the CEO, my daughter, with a glass of punch qualifies. That was an accident, Isabella shrieked. Was it? Oliver asked coolly. We have the security footage and the drone footage. Liam grabbed Oliver's arm. Oliver, please, you don't understand. If you pull the funding, the IPO collapses. We will be bankrupt. Everything is leveraged. Oliver looked down at his hand on her arm, the same hand that had pushed her away earlier. Let go of me, she said calmly. Kane stepped forward from the shadows of the stage, his hand moving to his jacket. Liam snatched his hand back, as if burned. Bankrupt, Oliver mused, tapping her chin. Yes, I suppose you will be. But it gets worse, Liam. She signaled to Kane, who handed her a thick blue folder. You see, in anticipation of this deal, your mother made some very risky financial moves last week. She used the Sterling estate, this mansion, the grounds, everything, as collateral for a bridge loan to keep the company afloat until the VGV money hit. Constance, shaking in the front row, let out a whimper. Who do you think bought that debt, Constance? Oliver asked. Constance's knees gave way. She collapsed into a chair, clutching her chest. VGV owns the loan, Oliver said, and since you are now in default due to the cancellation of the Skyline project, I'm calling the loan in, immediately. You can't, Liam shouted, sweat pouring down his face. This is our home. It's been in the Sterling family for 4 generations. And tonight, the legacy ends, Oliver said. You have until midnight to vacate the premises, all of you. Midnight, Isabella screamed. It's Christmas Eve. Where are we supposed to go? The plaza has rooms, Oliver shrugged, though I doubt you can afford them anymore. Maybe try the motel out on the highway. I hear they have vacancies. The crowd was mesmerized. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a public execution. Liam fell to his knees. He was crying now. Oliver, baby, please, I love you. I didn't know. If I had known who you were... That, Oliver interrupted, her voice cracking with sudden fury, is exactly the problem, Liam. You would have treated me like a queen if you knew I was a Vance. But because you thought I was a nobody, you treated me like trash. That is who you are. She placed a hand on her stomach. And that is why you will never, ever see this child. Liam froze. Child? You really are pregnant? Yes, Oliver said. A boy, the heir to the Vance Empire, and he will grow up knowing his father is dead. I'm not dead, Liam pleaded. reaching for her dress. Kane Vance stepped in. He placed a heavy, polished boot between Liam and Oliver. "To us you are," Kane said. He turned to the crowd, addressing the room full of bankers and lawyers. "Anyone who does business with Sterling Architecture from this moment forward is an enemy of the Vance family. Anyone who hires Liam Sterling or offers him a line of credit will be blacklisted by every bank in New York." He scanned the room. "Do I make myself clear?" A murmur of, "Yes, Mr. Vance," rippled through the terrified crowd. People were already pulling out their phones, cancelling meetings with Liam, deleting his number. In seconds, Liam Sterling became a pariah. "Now," Oliver said, looking around the ballroom, "I believe this is my party now. Security?" 4 guards stepped forward. "Please escort Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling, and Miss Thorne off the property. They are trespassing." "No, no!" Constance wailed as 2 guards hoisted her up by her armpits. "Oliver, I'm sorry. I was just stressed. I love you. You're the daughter I never had." "Get her out of my sight," Oliver said coldly. Isabella tried to run, but Kane blocked her path. "Don't touch me," she spat. "My father is a senator." "Your father," Kane said calmly, "is currently being investigated by the FBI for embezzlement. I sent the tip an hour ago. I doubt he can help you." Isabella's face went slack. She allowed herself to be dragged away, sobbing. Liam didn't fight. He just knelt on the stage, watching the woman in the red dress, the woman he had thrown away. He realized, with a crushing weight, that he had held a diamond in his hands and traded it for a rhinestone. "Oliver," he whispered one last time as the guards pulled him up. She didn't look back. As the doors slammed shut behind the trio, silence lingered for a moment. Then Kane Vance turned to the orchestra conductor. "Play something cheerful," he commanded. "It's Christmas." The band struck up a lively jazz rendition of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Oliver stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of faces that now looked at her with awe and fear. She felt a hand on her shoulder. Her father. "You did good, kid," Kane murmured. "How do you feel?" Oliver took a deep breath. The red velvet felt heavy, but it felt like armor. She touched her belly. "I feel," she whispered, "like I can finally breathe." She looked at the shattered glass on the floor where Constance had stood. The stain of the red wine from earlier was gone, replaced by the invisible blood of her enemies. "But Dad," she asked. "Yes? We still have the house to deal with, the Sterling estate." "It's yours," Kane said. "What do you want to do with it? Sell it? Burn it?" Oliver thought about the cold, loveless halls of that mansion, the guest room she had been forced into, the way Constance had looked at her. "No," Oliver said, a small smile playing on her lips. "I have a better idea. It's Christmas, after all. We should be charitable." "Oh?" Kane raised an eyebrow. "Turn it into an orphanage," Oliver said. "Constance always mocked me for being an orphan. Let's fill her precious, exclusive manor with hundreds of children who need a home. Let's paint the walls bright colors and let them run on the lawn." Kane laughed, a booming sound that made the guests smile nervously. "Done," he said. "The Sterling Home for Children. I like the sound of that." 1 year later. New York City was once again blanketed in snow, but the view from the street level was very different for Liam Sterling. He pulled the collar of his thin, worn-out jacket tighter around his neck as he walked down Fifth Avenue. The wind bit at his exposed skin. His hands were rough and calloused, stained with grease from his shift at the auto repair shop in Queens, the only place that would hire him after the blacklist Kane Vance had initiated. He stopped in front of a newsstand. His breath hitched. There, on the cover of Time magazine, was Oliver. She looked regal, holding a chubby, laughing baby boy on her hip. She was dressed in a soft cream sweater, standing in front of a beautifully renovated building. The headline read, "The Vance Legacy: How Oliver Vance Turned a House of Greed into a Home of Hope." Liam stared at the baby, his son. The boy had Liam's eyes, but Oliver's smile. He reached out a dirty finger to touch the glossy paper, but the vendor shooed him away. "Buy it or move it, buddy. No loitering." Liam kept walking, his heart feeling like a heavy stone in his chest. He had tried to reach out, of course. For the first month, he sent letters, emails, flowers. They were all returned unopened. Then came the legal order, a restraining order so severe that if he came within 500 feet of Oliver or the child, he would go straight to Rikers Island. He had lost everything. Constance was currently living in a state-subsidized assisted living facility in New Jersey. She had suffered a stroke shortly after the eviction. The stress of losing her social standing had literally broken her brain. Now, she spent her days yelling at nurses, telling them she was the Queen of Greenwich while wearing a hospital gown. Nobody visited her. Not even Liam. He couldn't bear to look at the woman who had poisoned his mind. And Isabella? The Thorne scandal had been the talk of the summer. Her father was serving 10 years for fraud. Isabella had been forced to sell her wardrobe on eBay to pay legal fees. Last Liam heard, she was working as a hostess at a dive bar in the Bronx, trying to find a new rich man to leech off of. But word travels fast in New York. She was toxic. Liam found himself walking toward the train station, but his feet dragged him toward a familiar neighborhood. He knew he shouldn't. He knew it was torture. But he had to see. He took the train out to Greenwich. He walked the long, snowy road to the estate where he had grown up. The iron gates were open. The menacing private property signs were gone, replaced by a colorful, hand-painted wooden sign, "The Vance Sterling Home for Children." Laughter drifted over the high brick walls. Liam stood in the shadow of an oak tree, hiding. Through the bars of the fence, he saw the lawn. It was filled with children building snowmen, having snowball fights, running free. And there she was. Oliver sat on a bench near the front porch, wrapped in a cashmere coat. She was watching the children play. Sitting next to her was Kane Vance, looking like a proud grandfather. And toddling in the snow between them was the baby boy from the magazine. The boy fell into the snow, giggling. Oliver scooped him up, kissing his rosy cheeks. "Mama!" the boy squealed. "I got you, Leo," Oliver laughed. "Grandpa has you too." Leo, they named him Leo, not Liam. A sleek car pulled up the driveway. A man in a dark coat stepped out. He wasn't rich. He wasn't a tycoon. He looked like a doctor. He walked over to Oliver and kissed her cheek, then picked up Leo, who hugged him familiarly. Liam watched as his wife, his ex-wife, leaned into this new man with a look of peace he had never given her. A look of safety. Kane Vance looked up then. His eyes scanned the perimeter of the property, sharp as a hawk. For a second, his gaze seemed to lock onto the shadow of the oak tree where Liam stood shivering. Kane didn't look angry. He just looked dismissive. He turned back to his daughter and grandson, dismissing Liam as nothing more than part of the landscape, as irrelevant as the dead leaves on the ground. Tears froze on Liam's cheeks. He realized then that the poverty wasn't the punishment. The work boots and the cold apartment weren't the punishment. This was the punishment. Seeing the life he could have had, the son he could have raised, and the woman he could have loved, all happy, thriving, and warm without him. He had chosen a stone over a diamond, and now he would carry that weight for the rest of his life. Liam turned away from the warmth of the house and began the long, cold walk back to the train station, back to the life he deserved. Inside the gates, Oliver adjusted Leo's hat. "Did you hear something?" the doctor asked her. Oliver looked toward the gate. The snow was falling harder now, covering the footprints of the man who had just left. "No," Oliver smiled, turning back to her family. "Just the wind. Let's go inside. It's Christmas." And that, my friends, is why you never judge a book by its cover, or a wife by her background. Liam Sterling learned the hard way that when you trade loyalty for status, you end up with neither. Oliver didn't just survive. She thrived, turning her pain into a sanctuary for others, proving that the best revenge isn't hatred, it's absolute, undeniable happiness. What do you think? Did the Sterlings get what they deserved, or was the punishment too harsh? And would you have forgiven Liam if he came crawling back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay safe and be kind.